Like all sailors, we have to be prepared for no wind. We have to be prepared for the big storm. And so understanding that, like the ocean, business is going to have its days. One day it's going to be beautiful and you'll jump off the back and have a swim, and other days you're just clinging on for dear life. And other days you really think you're going to die. And like from a business perspective, I had that exact experience. I've had some downs, but one that really stands out, that was, I suppose, your near-death experience.
Welcome to the Entrepreneur Organisation Business Podcast. I am your host, Linh Podetti. My guest today is Jamie Lingham, an EO Melbourne member who is a global immigration leader and the founder of Absolute Immigration. Active in the industry since 2001, Jamie takes a holistic approach to overseas immigration and relocation process, specifically looking at ways to educate clients in order to reduce issues faced by business sponsors and visa applicants moving to Australia and other destinations. In this episode, Jamie shared how he was faced with a storm in his business where he had staff leaving, money stolen, tax issues, and more. It felt like everything was happening all at once, and it was one of his worst experiences in business and life. But he made it through, and Jamie shared exactly how he was able to overcome it and how he's still passionate about running his business after 2 decades. This is seriously a remarkable story you don't want to miss. So let's join me in welcoming Jamie. Hi, Jamie. Welcome to the show.
Lynn, thank you so much for having me. I have been so excited to get on. So, this is an absolute privilege.
Great to hear. And I forgot you're in Melbourne. I was just in Melbourne recently, and I should have just reached out and catch up with you in person. But hey, I'll come back next time.
I'll hold to it.
Yeah. So, before we get on about the war story that you're going to be sharing, would love to hear about what your business does, and also, how did you even come up with the idea in the first place?
Yeah, that's a good question. Absolute Immigration is an immigration business. We're in the business of changing lives. We work with predominantly companies on attraction or retention strategies to find people from overseas. So if you look at Australia occupies 5% of the landmass of the whole world, but we have 1% of the global population, which is mind-blowing, right? There's 7.5 billion people outside our shores. So how do we help companies find people overseas? We don't recruit, but we sort of work with them on strategies and bring people who have been working in a market of 300 million people and bringing that skill and experience to Australia. I always say to my clients, if I could give you 10 amazing people, what would that do to your business? And I just think that given our position on the planet, Australia's position, and all the benefits we have here, we're like the best kept secret going around today. And to get great people here and to help them move to Australia and to reward them or help them achieve that goal is super special.
Yeah. So what sort of roles do you help with, and how did you come up with this idea? Like, is this like 20 something years ago that you came up? Because I got into the offshoring game, maybe a decade ago, but I basically sit at home and it's on my laptop and I'm just recruiting over there. Whereas you're bringing the people over here. So love to hear more about what are the roles you hire for?
Yeah. So what we do is we, I'll get back to how it started. So I was in marketing. I had a great job. I was working for a company that I thought was, had a lot of social equity in it. It was basically putting computers and internet packages into families who couldn't afford them. So they get a computer, internet package, for $10 a week. And that really brings that digital divide, but also the social equity piece. And it just meant that it wasn't just the rich kids who had access to all the learnings of the internet, and the poor kids had to go to the library and miss out. So I thought that part was rewarding. I had $1 million budget. I was getting flown to Australia, had a great salary, but something was missing. And my dad actually did immigration and visas, but he dealt with the other side. He dealt with a lot of protection visas, and he got a lot of people out of detention, and he was doing just an area I wasn't interested with. I think that the level of desperation from these people, from my point of view, was absolutely heartbreaking. To charge these people money to help them try and stay in Australia, it just wasn't my thing. But he said, look, get into it, you'll love it. You love people, you like solving problems. And so what I did is a bit like you, I started in my bedroom. I remember being on phone calls to recruitment companies. I bring recruitment companies and say, listen, you have CVs from people all over the world that you will never use and you'll never make $1 from. Why don't you refer those people to me? And if I sell them a visa, I'll give you a commission. And the recruitment company said, hey, why don't you start doing that for us? I said, yeah, no problems. And so it sort of grew from there. Then it went from my bedroom in a share house to a 2-bedroom apartment to a 50 square meter office to a 110 square meter office. And now it's, I've got a warehouse in Paran and I've got an office in Sydney, office in New Zealand. So, it has, sort of evolved through the years. And it's really, as I said, while we don't recruit, we work with companies on saying, okay, how do we attract and retain people from overseas? We did a massive piece of work with Brumbies. I had Michael Sherlock, who was the head of Brumbies, approached me and said, listen, we're closing down Brumbies bakeries in regional and remote locations. And then, in a population of 2,000 people, closed down a Brumbies, lost 6 jobs, devastating to the local economy. Funny enough, Lynn, you'll love this. I said, okay, well, why don't we go to Vietnam and why don't we get Vietnamese bakers? Because they are the best bakers in the world. It's close. And so we partnered with William Inglis, which is a hospitality training college. We partnered with a recruiter in Vietnam and we had a recruiter here. And we found a disused bakery, which was set up by the Australian Wheat Board at the Ho Chi Minh campus of RMIT. And we got these bakers from Vietnam. They got recognised Pro-Lean. They had an ACUS NIC3 within 5 weeks. We ended up bringing over 100 bakers across. And that was just in a short period of time. And so Michael basically said, hey, you want a Brumbies bakery? Here's the branding. Here's the recipes. And now here's the people. And so it was a whole package. So he used that not only just to stem the tide of actually closing down bakeries, he turned that round. It was like the classic hockey stick. And he sort of used that to open up more stores. So it was absolutely fantastic. Unfortunately, in 2007, they brought an English language requirement in, and we no longer could bring in bakers from Vietnam, which I think Australia suffered for.
Oh, no, I love my banh mi.
No, not banh mi. It's fantastic. Yeah, exactly.
So what are some of the other roles? So you mentioned like bakers. Like, can you list some other roles that you've done over the years that you've helped to give a visit?
We focus on a number of industries. So we have what we call our build pod. Our build is construction, engineering, mining. We have our care pod, which is aged care, childcare, healthcare. We act for, so we're for the largest infrastructure company in Australia and the largest healthcare organisation. So we've got, some really good levels and we work at that top level strategy. And we also have the services pod. So that's like accounting, IT. It's sort of a not elsewhere classified pod. We don't say no to work, but there are specific industries that we excel in and that are in our wheelhouse. We know, for example, for the build pod, if people are looking for engineers, we say, okay, well, let's look at big projects around the world. When are they finishing? In Dubai, a lot of people go from South Africa to Dubai. Where's the next stop? Australia or New Zealand. So we do New Zealand as well. I didn't mention that one. But that sort of, in my mind, that's a natural flow that they can go to. And the advantage of coming to Australia is obviously the opportunities that we have here, for family, for jobs, for the space. I mean, it's not, we don't have people pouring across our borders, which is fantastic. And, as I said, I think we're the best kept secret. Yeah.
So usually when employers employ these people from overseas, are they responsible for also the accommodation and like the living arrangement for the workers or?
That's a good question. And it's actually, they're not responsible for those things legally, but I think that it's the pastoral care piece. I think it's important. I think if you're bringing someone over from overseas, it's very different than a local hire. I hire someone locally and I say, instead of getting off the train and turning right, you just have to get off the train and turn left. An overseas person, I say, yeah, okay, I want to get you here. You've got your visa. I don't say, hey, Monday 23rd, I'll see you. Good luck. There has to be an education piece around this. And I think there has been over the years, I've seen it definitely evolve, and certainly with our clients. I think having an understanding of what are they turning up to, are you giving them housing support for a couple of weeks at least? So for example, we bring a lot of Filipinos in. We say, okay, where's the Filipino church? We'll put them in contact with the Filipino church because, they know. And so it's looking at different, things that will help these people settle into the community quickly.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, unless they're happy, they can't really work for you. So it's in our best interest to really care about them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, let's face it, if companies can work on a quick settlement and a successful settlement, as you said, they'll integrate faster, they'll start producing faster, they'll be happier. And most people, I think it was back in the day when the 457 program was on, I think 87% of people who came on a temporary visa elected to stay. and that's not a bad sort of hit rate. Just shows people get here, they go, okay, it's not my home, it's not where I was born, but it's my home now.
Yeah, that's amazing. Before I get onto the war story, I was just curious. So from the beginning of wanting to hire someone overseas to when they actually get started, usually what's the time frame that businesses could be looking at?
Yeah, I think, look, realistically, it depends the size of the business. The bigger business, so we have, our larger clients, they have what's called accredited sponsor status. That could be within a matter of weeks. And also it depends on the type of visa. I mean, I always say to people, a lot of people who work in the corporate space in my industry know a couple of visas very well, sponsored working visas. I always say that's like going to the mechanic and you're saying, can you fix my car? Mechanic goes, yeah, I've got a hammer and a screwdriver. I go, hang on, I've got 98 different tools in my toolkit. So what I'm saying then is there's different visas for different purposes. There's working holiday maker visas. There's subclass 400 visa, which is a project visa. There's so many different ways you could look at it. And I think that if you're going straight to the hammer and the screwdriver, it can be very expensive. I mean, you could pay $15,000 just for the visa process and you get someone over. So you've got to get it right. And it's also a high risk. If you do the heavy lifting and then this person goes to your competitor tomorrow, it's pretty tough, right? So the whole point about what we do, it's about delivering strategic immigration solutions. Like how do we share with you all we know? And as I say to clients when I meet them, I say, I'll explain the landscape to you. So imagine, you've never seen landscape. I explain where the trees are and where the river is. And I can show you pathways through that landscape. And what pathway you choose will be dependent on the person and the role and all those sort of things. But it's not a one-dimensional conversation. We're sort of moved it to 3D, 4D, is 4D thing, is 5D thing, I don't know. But we're trying to put as much depth involved with it so that our clients can understand, okay, how can I save time and money on the process and still not only attract but also retain people from all, because retains the game, right?
Yeah, definitely. You can avoid all the mistakes that you would be making, and especially you've been in this for so long. So let's talk about the business that you've been in for so long. You would have gone through so many different challenges and throughout your years. So I would love for you to share some stories and for us to be inspired.
I always say there's a couple of things. I think business is like just riding the best roller coaster you've ever been on, right? Like I don't know if you're into roller coasters. I love roller coasters.
I used to not like it, but now I like the adrenaline.
You've been in business, right? You've been in business.
Yes.
You get a roller coaster, this is part of the course. But I mean, like roller coasters, you have your ups and downs, you have your moments that are tougher than expected. And to give it another analogy, which I love, is I always say we're like a big sailing ship. I actually say pirate ship because I love that sort of, we're like pirates. We come in, we raid, and we're trying to, do all these cool things. But yeah, exactly. I'm scared. Like all pirates, though. Like all sailors, we have to be prepared for no wind. We have to be prepared for the big storm. And so understanding that, like the ocean, business is going to have its days. One day it's going to be beautiful and you'll jump off the back and have a swim, and other days you're just clinging on for dear life. And other days you really think you're going to die. And like from a business perspective, I had that exact experience. I've had some downs, but one that really stands out that was, I suppose, your near-death experience was in 2006. I was doing really well. This is at the peak with the Brumbies campaign. We had Brumbies on. We were putting more clients on. And I looked around my office in Melbourne. I had 10 staff in there. And I just went, you know what? I've got this. I'm going to go to Queensland. It's humming. I'm going to Queensland. And I am going to open up there because I see there's a lot of growth for building projects, etc. So what I did is I put a general manager in. I put a girl in who wasn't from the industry, and I thought, she seems great, and I liked her, and I've probably never been the best judge of character on that front or skill set. I think potential in people. I actually looked at the skill set, which I've made since. So anyway, so I moved up there. She was managing, 10 staff down here. I employed 3 or 4 staff up in Brisbane. I got a beautiful office at Tenerife. It was overlooking Tenerife at Milton. It was overlooking the river. I promise you, at the time of signing was that exact pinpoint peak just before the GFC hit in 2007. I promise you, I apologize, world. I think that signing is what did it. And I kid you not, but, typically life doesn't give you one thing at once, it doesn't give you a bad thing and say, hey, Lynn, here, take this bad thing and you could chew on that. And then once you finish, come to me for another bad thing. No. Life, it gives you everything. As I always say, sometimes life gives you a hug and sometimes it gives you a smack. And I just got the biggest smack from life. I had the GFC hit. I had the manager in Melbourne who rubbed everyone up the wrong way. I had 5 agents quit, so 5 people who are doing the work quit. I had a PA who was basically stealing money from me. I didn't know it. I got taken to court for fraud because of a document she gave to the Department of Immigration. It was just the whole world literally was falling down. And that was at the time, it was unbelievable. I mean, I was so, far out, this is going to go. But interestingly enough, so what I did is I packed up the office overnight. I remember packing up literally in the middle of the night. I had a call from the building manager of Brisbane. She said, are you doing a runner? And I said, no, I'm not. I said, but my business in Melbourne is falling apart and I have to get back as soon as I can. So I actually had a separate company, Absolute Immigration Queensland. And I had people saying, you can just cut that. You can, knock off the lease and that entity can shut down. I said, no, well, I got myself into this problem. I'm going to get myself out. And so I turned up to Melbourne and I walked in, I tell the general manager, she said, what are you doing here? And I said, I'm taking back my business. And she said, what do you mean? She said, well, I quit. I went, great, no problems. And then she's like, oh, well, I've got to work out. And I said, well, here's this terrible job, here's this terrible job, here's this terrible job. And she said, I can leave today. And I said, perfect. So basically I got out ahead. But also what was going on in the background on my personal life is I was seeing a girl who we were friends for 3 years and then we started dating, but she was in Melbourne and she said, look, if you've got to come back and work 7 days a week, 12 hours a day to get this back on track, I will support you. She said, that's what you got to do. I said, no problem. So I came back. I took on the caseload of the 5 agents. I took on another agent or two's caseload from Brisbane. And I literally did 12 hours was a short day, right? I would have done, 12 to 18 hours a day. A Penny, my now wife, was my girlfriend at the time. So that's
good.
Thank you. She came in and we'd have dinner and then she'd go home and I'd go back to work, right? And I just put my head down. I said, I'm not going to let this beat me. And this is, I had the belief I didn't do anything wrong, right? Like I made some poor decisions on house managing stuff. I wasn't a bad person. I still had my vision of where I wanted to be in the business. And that was my guiding light through the whole, sort of piece. And I suppose like in a big storm, lighthouse, you can see that there, land's not far away. It's just getting through it. And so it was, and everyone says, wow, that was terrible. It was so bad. And I look back there and I think that was the greatest part of this type of work. Greatest part that happened to me so far in my life, or for me. As Tony Robbins says, it happens for you, not to you. So yeah. I think that's the greatest thing that happened for me because I also had a bookkeeper who didn't pay as you go, BAS or super at the same time, right? So I left with money. Yeah, it was good, hey? So I left with money and I came back to $126,000 debt to the ATO. I had negotiated a payment plan of $8,000 a month. I had $4,500 in rent in Queensland to pay every month. So before I got out of bed every month, I had $12,500 that I had to meet in commitments. I had court fees that I was going through this because I was going through court case as well. Like this whole thing, there was just spur flying. It was insane. I actually, I look back and I go, how did I get through that storm? It's like when you get washed up on the beach, thank God, I just got kicked out of that whole piece. And anyway, but I look back on that and I think I learned about, I'm just going to tell you one other part of the story. So with the ATO stuff, I wrote a letter after 6 months to the ATO. I said, listen, this is what's happened. And this big long, letter. I'd love to find it just to see what I wrote. But I just basically said, I've had a tough time. Can you, is there any relief I can get? And I get this phone call. This guy's like, hey, it's Jamie, it's Troy from the ATO. I'm like, oh, hey, Troy. And he's like, Matt, it sounds like a very, really shit year. And I'm like, oh, you have no idea. And he goes, yeah, I read the letter. He said, listen, what I'm going to do is I'm going to remit all the penalties and all the interest, right? $26,000. And that's the time it felt like I'd hit the bottom, right? Like I'd turned around, all this persevering and all this hitting there and fighting the waves. Suddenly it just started, I had that calmness coming in, right? I was like, okay, the boat's like smashed up and we're limping into shore. The sail, the mast is broken and the sails everywhere. Like, it was a mess, right? I'm not going to lie to you. But, as I said, I look back at it and I think, well, hang on, I learned about the importance of understanding finances in the business and understanding all the roles in the business. I didn't love finance. I was like, someone else can deal with it. They're an expert. So the bookkeeper, I thought they had under control. I didn't have systems in place to check it, to know what every cent was doing, to sign off every cent that actually went out. An invoice comes in, I check the invoice. Yep, do we actually spend that money? If we don't, hang on, what's this invoice about? To understand where the money's going to, so it taught me that. It taught me about, just what it gifted me. I'll tell you, I don't know if taught is the right thing. I think gifted is the better word. It gifted me the ability to really focus and get through work, right? To become like hyper efficient, because I was there. I had, so if you saw a migration agent or an immigration lawyer, they've got a number of files. They're managing people's expectations, they're managing time. And I just learned to hustle like crazy. Like, I'm like, hey, Lynn, I'm doing application. I've got these 3 documents I need from you. Like, I need them by Friday. And then what's happening? If you don't by Friday, I'm going to push you out to I can lodge you in 2 weeks. You're like, oh no, I'll get it to you by Friday. So starting to create urgency, but I really learned, it just gave me this amazing understanding of how to get stuff done or get shit done, right? Like, really get in there and just cut through all the crap I think that a lot of people have. And so, which is in turn helped me train my staff and coach people and, do all those types of things to say, hey, let's strip back what we don't need. Let's focus on what we're doing and how do we do it more efficiently and effectively.
Yeah, it seems like you just got an opportunity to learn really, really fast in a really short period of time. Now, looking back though, where do you think you might have gained that strength to push through? Like, anything when you were growing up that, built you to be able to have that resilience to actually, battle it? Because when people always ask me like, how am I able to do this and that? And I'll be like, actually at 10 years old, I already learned to do this through my parents. And that's what made me do. Can you think of anything that made you have that kind of mindset?
The whole lot. So I remember doing paper rounds with my brother when I was 5, right? And doing, my mum brought up 3 kids on her own, and and she was great. So she worked 2 jobs, and she, but she always sort of pushed us. My dad always, just despite his, I suppose his less than desirable business dealings, he taught me a lot about, self-belief and just about, you can do anything you like. So it just, I know it's not a specific event that happened. It was a series of things that I grew up through life. We didn't have a lot what other kids had. You know what I mean? So learning the resilience of saying, okay, that's okay. You know what I mean? Let's focus on myself. Taking myself from school, working since I was young. I mean, I wasn't like proper child labor, but, I was out there doing stuff because my older siblings were doing stuff, and I was like, hey, I'm coming with you. So it was all, and watching my dad in business himself and, his highs and lows, I think that was a good way. But, and I played a lot of sport as well, and playing sport and never giving up, I think that's important. And I don't know, I think, on sport, I've played sport. I love sport. I think sport is a really good teacher. I think there's so many parallels between sport and business, and I think those things, learning that resilience. And I see so many times in sport where you think with a minute to go that your team's lost, and they come back and they win. And I say that to my kids all the time. I go, you just have to have that self-belief that until the last minute, anything is possible. So, and I love that, I think, and that's been a bit of a guiding principle for me.
Yeah. Were there any moments in that journey that you felt like giving up or, just closing up, or were you just straight in determined to pull through?
Yeah. I mean, look, I had those days and those conversations of people saying to me, hey, you can close down the business and you won't have the liabilities for it. But I didn't actually. I didn't think I'm going to give up. I just thought I know, like with the court case, I was like, I know I didn't. We won the court case, obviously, but interestingly enough, we went through the first court case, and the magistrate at the magistrate's court said, "Oh no, guilty," right? And he just didn't like me. It was a personality thing. Like I had a fax sent to the court, and I had an email sent to the court, and I had an EA at the time that was super efficient, and the magistrate said to me, he said, this is not your personal office, like yelled at me. And he said, what's next, a pizza? Anyways, so he wasn't happy. Anyway, so he found me guilty. So, which is really, it's a very interesting feeling to go through that court process. Someone say you're guilty that you did this when you didn't, So I can see these people have been put in jail for things that they do. It was actually a horrible feeling. Fortunately enough, in Australia, obviously, I can appeal it. I appealed to the county court. I went and saw a barrister, and the barrister said to me, because my lawyers at the time were going, it's immigration's fault, and they're hiding this, they're covering it all up. My barrister said, well, what was happening with your accounts? And I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, let's subpoena the bank accounts of this individual. And we got them, and all of this fraud suddenly came to light, and then it sort of made sense. Okay, the letter was changed by this person, and then that went to immigration. It's amazing how life goes, it just unfolds for you. You don't see the whole circle of the picture.
Yeah.
You just get just the little start, but then you go by the end and go, wow, that's why that happened. Why something happened years earlier, to get to that point there. And that's another thing I love about life is you just don't see those little cool gems that happen early and actually, turn into something amazing down the road. And then you go, wow, and everything just clicks in. Okay, now I know why that happened. But anyway, so this guy, Simon Gillespie Jones, he figured it all out, and we went to court, and we got this person on the stage, and we showed that she was stealing money, and they couldn't prove beyond a reasonable doubt I was guilty. And and then past that, I didn't take it to court. I didn't have the stomach for it. Courts are pain. I wish I did now. I think I need to protect future people, but then I did hear that she did the same thing to her next employer. It was about $500,000. I think she went to jail. So, which is a happy ending on that front. Just for justice and things like that, and people doing the wrong things. But yeah, so look, I always had that belief, the self-belief. I knew I didn't do the wrong thing. I knew I had a good vision for the business. I love what I did, and I just went, I'm just going to keep holding on to that.
Yeah. So with all that you've gone through, how has it really shaped you as a leader now? Looking back at, obviously things happen for a reason because you needed to learn a lesson. Can you describe who were you before and who are you now? And I'm sure between then and, many years later, you would have learned more lesson. But yeah, looking back, describe your old self and your new.
And I think that was the death of the old me. That was the killer blow about the old me. It was like, oh yeah, I'm in business. So yeah, I'm cool with that. That person's got under control. Just it's a serious endeavor, and you have a lot of responsibility. What it did, it really, it was like the cold diamond moment, you know what I mean? Because it really solidified who I was as a person, where my morals were, where my values were, where my ethics were. I wasn't going to walk away from it. I wasn't going to, I was responsible. I owned it. I owned the absolute crap out of it, right? And I just went, okay, I'm going to own this. And I think there's a few things here. Number one is vulnerability is, in my view, is your greatest teacher. You have to, I think people have to be vulnerable. I tell that to my team. That's where your greatest learning will happen. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to say you don't know something, because I think that's where the best stuff happens. So I wasn't vulnerable. I didn't know what I sort of knew what I didn't know, but I didn't really, I tried to outsource that to someone else. So I think owning everything in the business was important to me. And, I just think as a leader today and what I'm doing in the business, that the self-belief has got stronger. All of those things I had, I think that those positive things in my life and the doubts about, am I good at this or am I do that, they sort of moved away a lot. It was just that built that confidence. So as I said, I think it's that cold diamond where you see it was actually better, or I don't know, the what is it, the ugly duckling to the swan. I don't know. But there's those sort of moments, but I think that's really what it taught me, but it's helped me move forward and discuss it with the team and say, hey, look, it's okay to be this, or this is my learning, or this is how you can do stuff. So I think it made me a much better leader.
Yeah, I love it. You really just, face it front on rather than running away from things. So, you've been in business for so long, or what keeps you going? Why are you still in the business versus, maybe it's time to get rid of it like most people would do after 2 decades. It's like, I'm over it. But what keeps you here?
I love what I do, on a number of levels. So number one is I love working with big companies on solving their problems, their staffing problems and help, their attraction and retention problems. I love making a difference in people's lives. The industry is very exciting. You know what I mean? Like, it's so good. I've had situations where I've had people ring me and say, "Hey, I'm in New York. I don't have a visa. I need to get that visa by the time I arrive to San Francisco," and I've turned that around. You know,
Wow.
so it's a global business, you know, and it's highly exciting. But also I look at it and what keeps me coming back is I love developing people. I love developing my team. I like unlocking their potential and seeing them grow. I think that's good. But from a bigger business point of view, I think it's really about, I look at the EYs and the Fragermans and the Deloittes, et cetera, of the world, and who are our competitors. And I just go, why can't we be like that? You know, why can't we be global? Like, we actually, what took them 130 years, why can't we do that in 10 years? Because we absolutely can. I think technology and the way the world is, I think we can. And so to me, it's like, I'm just going to keep driving down this road until you tell me I can't drive down it anymore, or the bridge is out, or there's a pot, like whatever, right? The pothole doesn't matter. We'll just get better wheels on the car. But what I'm saying is, you know, I just want to keep pushing this as far as I can push it. And yes, I've been offered to be bought out a number of times. And yes, I could have sold out and said, okay, well, I'll get out for 2 years and go. But I actually just had fun with it. I love having our team conferences and our quarterly celebrations. And we fly the team in from New Zealand, Sydney, and just looking around and seeing their connection. You know, it's like building a family, and I love it. I just sit back and I just go, wow, that's amazing. And it's I get a kick out of that. So that's what keeps me going.
Yeah, I really love your passion. It's so inspiring and definitely so much self-belief. So, I mean, I'd like to wrap this up. I would love to talk to you all day because it's just such a passion. But yeah, ultimately, like, what do you want to be remembered for with everything that you're trying to do with your business or in life?
Yeah. So I'll give you a bit of a longer answer than probably what you wanted. I sat down with my kids and we said, what's our family values, right? And the last name Lingham, right? So it's loving, it's inclusive, it's never give up, it's generous of body, mind, and soul. It's honest. It is adventurous, and the last one is memorable, right? And we want to be memorable. We say whatever we're going to do, we're going to be memorable. And so I think I just want to be remembered for, you know, for being honest and great on the field, like a good player. You know what I mean? Like, if you are really great at as a tough competitor, I want people to go, wow, I played against him. That was really tough, but it was great. You know, I respect him for it. I want to be respected. But I also want this business and any other business I'm in just to have outlive me and my family business to outlive me, you know, and just to keep growing and keep contributing in a positive way. So not doing negative things, you know, not trying to rip people off, not trying to. I just think that's got to be the number one thing, you know. Like, how do you to be remembered as someone who was a good person, who played well, who didn't have to cheat, who didn't have to play dirty, all those types of things, and still succeeded, you know. Because you often hear these people who make it the top, they've done this light steel chair. I don't believe that's true. I've got mentors who are worth, you know, ridiculous money, who have been honest their whole life and have done well. And I think that, you know, people sit there and say, oh, that person succeeded because he did this. You've got to be ruthless and you've got to be terrible. It's not true.
I can so resonate with that. I really like you, JB. I resonate those values. And it inspired me to actually go home and come up with some synonyms. Is that
yes? Well, you can be Podetti, right? Like, you can have your family value there. Cool. On that point, it was a really great exercise to do with the kids.
Yeah.
You know, and they loved it. They all contributed to it. And whenever my kids do the wrong thing, I've got the reverse values. And I can't remember exactly what they are, but none of them are flattering, right? Oh yeah. So L for lying, I for ignorant or whatever. And I go through that and I say, is that us? And they go, no. Well, sometimes when they do think, I'm like, well, is that a Lingham family value? They're like, no. I'm like, okay, cool. Well, how do we turn that around?
Wow, that is impressive. I can't wait to do that exercise with my family. Well, thank you so much, Jamie, for the opportunity to talk to you. I learned so much. I'll make sure to put your details in the description below so they can connect with you across social media. I know you're on LinkedIn and your website as well. Yeah.
Sure. Lynn, absolute pleasure. I loved it. I love what you do. I follow you on LinkedIn. I love all your posts. You're always so positive and vibrant, you know, and what you bring to the community, to the entrepreneurial journey is fantastic. And I get a lot of benefit from it.
Oh, thank you so much. You're so kind.
Okay, no worries. See you.